Welcome to Backyard Cinema 101. And today I'm talking about Flickr because, unlike Good Intentions, I shot Flickr by myself. 90% of that movie was done by myself. And how it came about, I was a projectionist for many years, and I was really tight with my PM in that building in particular. And I was just going on about how creepy the environment was and how we should make a movie up here. He says, yeah, we should. I'm like, really? He says, yes, but just stick to low side. Whatever you're going to do, stick to low side, okay? Because our booth was split in two. You had low side cinema, which was cinemas 1 through 15. Then you had high side, which were cinemas 16 through 24. And the high side booth was connected to the GM's office, and she would typically walk through, go down the back steps, and have a cigarette. So didn't want her walking in on me with a camera throwing blood all over the floor. So I stuck to low side. I came in on my day off. I only had 5 hours. I felt that was enough time to get all the shots that I wanted because I didn't have a story. I didn't have a script. I was so surprised that I was having this opportunity that I just couldn't come up with anything. And I'm a terrible writer. I truly am. As far as doing the work, sure, I can come up with a plot. I can write dialogue, but sticking to it, my discipline is like... I've gotten better since I've started writing reviews, talking about video games and stuff like that, but at that time it took a lot of discipline to sit down and fill out however many pages I needed to tell a story. So I just said, fuck it, I'm going to make it up as I go along. So I shot a lot of stuff with me just doing random crap, the stuff I would do on my shift. Because as important as it was to be a projectionist for 35mm film, once you got it down, it was a very tedious job. If you're doing your job correctly, you're not going to encounter much in the way of problems with 35mm. You're not going to have to deal with a brain wrap unless something fails, which was once in a blue moon. Other than checking every 30 minutes or so, doing a round where you make sure that the film is in focus and steady, that's about it. You would do that once every 30 minutes, then you're sitting on your ass however long until your next round, and or until a movie stops and then you have to rethread it, get it ready for the next show, cleaning the projector, all that, because 35mm film, each and every time it goes through the projector, emulsion breaks off, and it's this very fine purple dust, and it gets all up in the gears, mechanisms, what have you, and you have to go in there and wipe everything down, clean it. Otherwise, it will build up and turn into like a kind of resin, and it will get really stiff and it will scratch the prints. And 35mm film rentals, if I remember correctly, was like $5 grand. So you do that shit, but I could have a projector cleaned and threaded in 1:30. Easy. Just making sure that you do a thorough job. That here I am, that's all I do. I would sleep, play games. I would take my Game Boy up there and play. I would sometimes take a notebook and write. I would draw, do my lightsaber battles, stuff like that. Have gun battles with my fingers, doing all that kind of crap. Trying to keep myself entertained because you're up there for 8 hours doing nothing except threading and starting shows and making sure that they don't explode. Every now and then I would get to build prints. That was fun because prints, depending on the length of the film, it would either come on 5 reels or 8. I think the most I'd ever built up was 13. And that may have been Grindhouse. I'm not sure. It's been a while. May not have been Grindhouse. I don't think I was working in a cinema yet. But we had a long fucking movie. I think it was Avatar. I think that was like 10 or 11 reels. That was pretty bad. But anyway, when I showed this movie to a bunch of people, they were kind of stunned. That was my job. 2, they were amazed that, oh, well, was it a problem having a crew moving lights? I'm like, I didn't have a crew. It was just me. It was a camera, a tripod, and that was it. What you're not seeing is me walking to and from the camera, turning it on and off. That's it. The biggest problem I had shooting scenes like that was focusing, because now I have a Sony HDV camera that I use for everything, and it has a dedicated focus ring, where the camera I was using was a JVC standard definition mini DV camcorder, and you had to use the knob on the viewfinder, and using that to focus is one of the greatest headaches I've ever had. So if you don't have a camera, here's a tip for you. Make sure it has a focus ring, because you never know when you may be shooting a movie and you're the only lead. You won't have a crew. Because if you really want to make movies, you can't wait around for other people to get interested. You have to work with what you have, and you know where you're going to be. You can adjust your schedule. You don't have to feed yourself very much. So yeah, get a camera with a dedicated focus ring, because what I would have to do, I would show you the raw takes, but a lot of that tape is trapped on tape. My mini DV camera has since crapped out, so I can't transfer any more footage. But I would have to use one of the standees. A lot of the promotional materials for movies, if we liked it, the projectionist, if we liked it, we would steal it once the movie was done, rather than throwing it away. So we would just take it upstairs and use it to decorate the booth. What you don't see in a lot of those shots, if you look at the walls, there's a lot of movie posters. Some of them I took down because they had celebrities' faces, and I didn't want that to create a copyright problem. Yeah, and yeah, just wanted to avoid that at all costs. So I took a lot of those down. But I would use a standee to use as a placeholder. Then I would run back to the camera, focus it, and then throw the standee away and act out the scene. The worst shot was the close-up where I'm walking and I see the slasher duck behind a projector. That was funny. The slasher was played by Henry. Henry was working that day, and he had a lot of downtime. On high side, you're only responsible for cinemas 16 through 24. That's it. That's not a lot of theaters to monitor compared to the low side. So he came over to see what I was doing, and he's like, "Oh, you're making a movie?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Can I play the slasher?" "Sure. You want to play a slasher?" He's like, "Yeah. Come on, that would be fucking awesome. I would love to help out." And Henry is such a genuinely sweet man, and very funny, very smart, and great sense of humor. I really can't stress that enough, because I started joking with him, like, we're breaking new ground on this movie. He's like, "Why?" I'm like, "Because slashers are never played by black actors." He's like, "Really?" I'm like, "No, think about it. Any slasher movie you've ever seen, you have never seen a black slasher." He's like, "Why is that?" And I'm like, "Because most serial killers, no, like the vast majority of serial killers are light-skinned or white." He's like, "Why is that?" I'm like, "I don't know. White people are fucked up." But of course nobody would know this, because his costume had him covered from head to foot. I did that intentionally because I thought I was going to play the slasher. I thought I would have no choice. I wasn't counting on Henry to come and help out. And he was great. It's like a lot of actors when they talk about on movies how you put on, say they're making a superhero movie and they put on a costume and everything changes. Their posture changes, their walk. It all shifts. It's like you're becoming a different person. Henry was the same. And one of my favorite shots is when I'm checking out that dark room where we kept spare popcorn poppers. I look in and he just does this thing behind me, which was my John Carpenter shot. And he just glides right past. And a few friends had asked me, "Was he on roller skates?" I'm like, "No, he's just that smooth." It's true, he was. And here's another issue. My two favorite filmmakers are David Fincher and John Carpenter. And I love their shooting style, where they actually compose shots. And Lots of smooth, steady camera movements. I like that a lot. Standard definition cameras, not the best tool for that because the resolution is so low. Getting a wide shot like this one where you see, after I've just witnessed the slasher maybe going behind a projector, I'm not entirely sure what I saw it out of the corner of my eye. It goes to this wide shot and it's meant to kind of bring out the isolation, but the problem there is that the resolution is so low, the pixel count just pops right off the fucking screen. Standard definition is not good for wide shots. You may not encounter this problem unless you go really cheap. You go online and the only camera you can afford is a cheap standard definition camera. Something to keep in mind, wide shots do not hold up very well on standard definition. Also, color, way off. I really wanted dark, deep blacks, and trying to do that in camera was a pain in the ass. The camera was a bit limited. I didn't notice it really until you get home and you throw it on the computer and you're like, ooh, that doesn't look so good. And having to use practical lighting, I had to adjust it so that the lighting would work, because we don't have many lights up in booth. We have cleaning lights, but we can't turn them on. They're too bright. Not while we're up and running. So we had these red lights, which I thought would look great, but it was very hard having that light a goddamn scene. So I didn't have any special lights. All the lights that you see are part of the booth. But anyway, yeah, Flickr is an example of how you can make a movie by yourself. The only scene that I had assistance on was the very last, and that was me in the elevator with Henry. Henry plays a victim. And that was back when I'd gotten an idea to make Flickr into a feature. So I went back another day, shot for another 5 hours thinking I can get the whole movie like this. Totally wrong. I only got maybe 40% of the material I needed. And I really liked that scene and I wanted to throw that in the short. So when I re-edited the movie, I included that scene. And there I had a buddy who was working that day. His name was Mike, if I remember correctly. And he held the camera while I played the slasher and I killed Henry. So Henry had a non-slasher cameo in the movie and he dies. And I think he has the best death. And fun fact, the shot looking up at the slasher, that was a rip from Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers. There's a scene where Kim Darby's character is in the backyard and she's going through this maze of sheets and shirts, drying naturally in the back on clotheslines. And she pulls one back and there's this low angle of Michael holding an axe, and then he just brings it down and chops off her head. It was such a striking shot. It's my favorite death in the whole movie. I feel it's the most effective and most visually stunning. And that was my homage to that. I know you think, why not pay homage to a good Halloween movie? I'm sorry. Even bad movies have some good things in them. But you can make a movie by yourself. It is possible. All you need is a camera, a tripod, and you. And a concept. Me, I just thought, I'm going to make a movie in a booth. I realized later while I was editing, I had no story. And I thought, what can I do with the material I have? So I wrote a narration later, after the movie was cut, and recorded that, laid it over the picture, then boom, I have a story. Narration is a cliche. But sometimes, if you're making a short movie, I think it's forgivable. Whenever I make a short movie, I feel a short movie should be no longer than 10 minutes. 5 minutes would be considered, I believe, a super short. And there's nothing wrong with that. You can tell a story in 5 minutes. There are people that make commercials that tell a story in 30 seconds. That's a good challenge for yourself. If you have a camera, you have a tripod, you have yourself. Even if you don't have a tripod, you can make it work. You can either do something from a point of view where you handhold the camera, or you can just get a bunch of boxes and sit your camera on top of that shit. You can make it work. You just have to be inventive. You have to be creative. And challenge yourself to tell a story in 30 seconds. If you can do that, tell a story in 5 minutes. Then challenge yourself again, make a story in 10 minutes. Then keep going. Keep going. Keep evolving. Anyway, thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.